Good morning, friends. I wanted to share with you today a somewhat short summary of my journey with my son, my oldest one, my firstborn, the one who made me a mama, and his journey with cancer thus far. August 27th of 2025. Just a minute. Okay, so August 27th, 2025, that is the anniversary of my wedding date for me and my late husband. And I woke up that morning and I said, nothing's going to take me down. Nothing. Is going to be a fabulous day. And I just thought nothing was going to take me down. Meanwhile, my son had been going to the doctor. He had been complaining of headaches. And we just kind of thought he had kind of migraine issues, kind of runs in my family kind of thing. And he had had some kind of procedure done in his nose. They thought there was something in his nose that was blocking something or pressing on some nerve, and we didn't think it was anything. Anyway, the biopsy report came back, and it was cancer. And basically how the doctor explained it to me after he told me on August 27th, 2025, that he said, Mama, I have cancer. But anyway, how the doctor explained to me, if you could cut your head off, like right here, just kind of zoom it off, take your skull off, take your brain out, you have these two very small holes where the nerves and everything run through your face. Well, I guess it had started in his nasal cavity and it had spread into his skull and was growing alongside, attaching itself to his skull. So that's what was causing him headaches. That was what is bringing him so much pain. And so we found out that he had cancer. He got a fabulous cancer team in Atlanta to figure out what the treatment was going to be. So it was back and forth. Him and his wife would go to Atlanta to the doctors. They'd run these tests and just all this stuff. It really is kind of blur, but if you've ever known anyone or if you've ever had cancer, you know that there's a bunch of stuff that you have to do. Well, the doctors, the cancer team up there examined him and determined that it was stage 3 cancer. And his lymph nodes were swollen. So they did this different type of radiation. It's called proton therapy, and you can't get it here where I'm from. He had to go to Atlanta to go have this done. And they started him off with chemo. So he got his little chemo poured in, and they were gone all the time. So Georgia and I had spent a lot of time together because I would take care of her because they would have to go up there. Sometimes they would spend the night. That got super expensive. God got him through that. And anyway, so I had spent a lot of time with Georgia, and I told you that when stuff happens, I get on a hamster wheel, so I did. And my prayer room that I had in my house, I took it down and just put the crosses all in the house. There's a bunch of them. I don't even know how many they are, but you can see them along this back wall. There's some in front of me in the kitchen in my room. It's just everywhere. Or they are just everywhere, and I like it. But I was getting this back room ready. I got a bed put in there. A good friend of mine gave me a bed. And there's a bathroom in there. Because I have really no clue. I had some idea because a friend of mine was going through cancer. But I had no clue on how he was going to feel after his treatment. And if he didn't feel like riding home because he was, extremely nauseous, the chemo was no joke. Since he is young, he is 36 years old. Actually, he just turned 36 this year, so he was 35. But they gave him a super strong mixture of different types of chemo, maybe. I could be wrong, but it was super strong. And immediately, well, I wouldn't say immediately, but within a week or two, he was getting sick. He was throwing up. His hair was coming out. And he was just going through a very, very rough time. And he's a man, so he doesn't want to go to the doctor. And gosh, y'all, it reminded me so much of Rob. It's just like, I don't want to go to the doctor. But anyway, by the holidays came, he could not even really eat because he was so nauseous from the chemo. And he went into the hospital finally on January 1st. His his kidneys were at 40% functioning, meaning his body was shutting down. He was in the hospital for approximately 2 weeks or more. What had happened was his cancer port had become infected and he became septic. Now, this is what I'm thinking. I'm not a doctor, but his blood was septic. The infection was in his blood system. It was going around. And what had happened was that infection brought that cancer throughout his body, and it metastasized. And he started having tumors in his lungs. His cancer progressed to stage 4. Well, after they took the cancer port out, he got a PICC line, and he was just being pumped full of antibiotics. And he was starting to get better. And I can't remember if he started back his treatments late February, early March, something like that. And what they did is they gave him the chemo through his PICC line. They didn't insert another port. They gave him the chemo through his PICC line. That was once a week. And he was doing radiation every single day. So my baby and his sweet wife were up in Atlanta for most of the week. That first, or many times, most of the time maybe, I would say, he would drive up there. They would drive up there and drive back, drive up there and drive back. But they didn't want to leave Georgia that long. So I had Georgia pretty much for almost that, well, I would say probably that entire month. They would come back and forth, and I had their dogs and everything. Worried to death because, once again, he started becoming sick. He went back into the hospital April 1st, and his diagnosis was adult failure to thrive. Georgia and I took a trip up to Atlanta so that she could see her mommy, because he was up there for like 2.5, 3 weeks. And it's scary. It's scary. It was so scary for me being his mama. I can imagine how scary it was for his wife and my son. So that's been his experience with the different chemo treatments. Now, going back to when he first started, and I was preparing the room back there for him. And I've told this story before, but I've got to tell you again, because you may have missed it, and it's a good one. I had Georgia. They were up in Atlanta, and I was cleaning up the room because I'm on the hamster wheel, you know. And I'm cleaning up the room, wiping the counters off. It's dusty, you know, whatever. God put a TV in there. Anyway, And Georgia was sitting on the bed that was back there. And I don't know what she was doing. She was playing with something. And I'm just cleaning, you know. And I had her right there because she's 3 at this time. And she said, Gigi, because I might have been crying, who knows. She said, Gigi. I said, yes, baby. And she said, Jesus said my daddy's going to be okay. Sorry. And I said, who told you that? You know? And she said, Jesus told me that. I said, he did? She said, yes. He told me that my daddy was very sick, but he was going to be okay. I lost it. Okay, guys, I just lost it. And, you know, immediately, you know, called them because that gave me so much hope. And I truly believe that you can hear God's voice when you're younger because you're so innocent. You haven't been as polluted as when we become adults. And so that stayed on my mind, just tears, everything. The next morning, when she told me that, she says, I'm nosy. She didn't say I'm nosy. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. I was nosy. I said, well, Georgia, can we talk about Jesus? She says, okay. Now, mind you, she's 3. I said, what did he look like? And she said, he's brown. I said, okay. She said, he had on this long pink curtain dress. I said, he did? She said, yeah. And he wore glasses like you and my mommy and my daddy wear. And I started in to say, what else did he say? But you know, that 3-year-old mind, she just went, shoo, you know, just went, you know, somewhere else. So that was the end of that conversation. But since she told me that, y'all, I have been hanging on to that. Like hanging on to the hem of his garment. Because, you know, you could say, and it's true, you know, just give it to God, have faith, trust in God. And I get that, I do. But y'all, I'm human, and it's easier said than done. It is easier said than done because your heart just breaks because you don't know what's going to happen. Only God knows. But he told Georgia, my granddaughter, that he was going to be okay. So after that, all those hospital stays started. And I just kept hanging on to that. And I'm just going to be honest, I cried a lot. I was scared. My son, he's now 36 years old, and he has a beautiful 4-year-old little girl, and he has a wife that puts up with him. Okay, so all of those are miracles in itself. But he went and took his PET scan after his treatments were done by August, and then he went into the hospital. So they had a PET scan, you know, as a follow-up. And I'm going to have to read it. You know, it's a bunch of medical words, you know. So I put it into the computer and say, please put this in more simple terms so I can understand So I had it summarize it for me. And this is basically what it says. Now, this is not the official report. It's not the official report. He has to talk with his cancer team. But this, let me just share it. All right, so I'm going to have to bring this computer a little closer. Maybe blow it up some. Ah, that's better. Okay, so I was sending this message to, the people that have been close to me during this journey with my oldest son. This is one that I shared to them. I experienced a miracle. I experienced God's hand at work. There is no other explanation. But my son was really sick. And I put his, he gave me access to his chart. So I put the PET scan person's notes into ChatGPT and said, please make it easier. But again, it's not official, but it's beautiful. It's miraculous. Okay. PET scan summary, easy to understand, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. The main tumor that's in his skull has gotten smaller and less active. So that means it's responding well to treatment. The cancer spots in both lungs have almost completely disappeared. The few tiny spots that are still there are not active on the scan, which means they most likely represent treated tissue or scarring rather than active cancer. The lymph nodes in the neck have not changed and are believed to be reacting to healing or inflammation, not active cancer. No new cancer was found anywhere else in his body. The bones, liver, abdomen, pelvis all look clear. No other signs that the cancer has spread. And then it goes on to say, what to expect. This is not official. Consult with your doctors and all that. We got that about, I want to say 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon. And I just cried. Tears of joy. I talked to my son maybe about an hour later. He had to process the information too with him and his family. And of course it was very emotional with him and his family. And when I heard him talk to me yesterday, and we were just so happy, y'all, he sounded like a child. He sounded so giddy and so happy. That, my friends, is what I was on a hamster wheel about Thursday. He was getting his scan. And we are positive that overall everything's going to be fine with him. I'm praying that everything's going to be fine with him. He's got to meet with his cancer team, but it was like, I don't know, just 10,000 pounds lifting off your heart. God is good. He's good. He's been so good to me through these hard times and through these good times. So that makes me even that makes it even more confirmation in my video from yesterday for Numbers 2. Every morning, His mercies are new. Get up and praise the Lord. I praise you, Father. I'm going to work on numbers 3, but I wanted to share that story. I didn't mean for this video to be this long, but I wanted to share with you this miracle. Another one. I've seen quite a few in the past year, and this is another one. I love you guys. Peace and blessings.